2023. Recording in progress. Awesome. Oh, let's go back. A little bit about us. Can you see all of us? So I'm Brenda Trigo. I am, we're all VB Realty Group. I'm the team lead. Vivon Ionese is my business partner, amazing agent. Tammy is also my partner, amazing agent. And our newest addition is Natalie. Awesome agent too. So we're super excited to be here today to help you through this process. Thank you. So, I mean, really, we hear this all the time. Like, I want to, wait to buy. And we always say in real estate, buy and then wait, right? Hold on to property instead of waiting to buy. So we want to show you this graph of when you look at what prices were in 1991, where they are today. There was that slight decline during the financial debacle, which was a crazy time. But even people that bought then that were probably like really upset because they thought they bought at the top of the market, look at where prices are today versus where they were then. So again, never a bad time to buy. And what we're going to cover today. So fears and facts about buying a home, realities of our market today, and the 10 simple steps to home ownership. Can everybody hear me? Did we test it on Zoom? Yeah, okay. Can you guys just give me a thumbs up? I want to make sure that those of you on Zoom can hear. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Fears and facts about buying a home. So the most common fear that we hear is, I can't afford to buy a home right now. Until you do the math and you sit down with a lender, you don't know what you can and cannot afford. So like Mark today, for example, sat down with Marisol and got an idea of his numbers. So he's going to be looking to buy his first home. Congratulations, Mark. Yay. Fear, I should wait until the market gets better. We hear this all the time. And again, going back to the previous slide, there is never a bad time to buy the right home. Number 3, fear, I don't have the money for the down payment. There are a variety of down payment options available to you. So again, until you sit with a lender, you don't know what your options are. Different cities have different programs. Sometimes there's down payment assistant programs, and people don't realize, and Marisol will get into detail, but you can buy a home with as little as 3% down. Or if you are a veteran, 0%. You don't even need a down payment. So there are incredible programs that, again, until you get in front of someone, you won't know. Fear number 4, I can't afford to buy a home because my credit isn't very good. Again, there's always options and there's opportunities to repair your credit. So again, it goes back to sitting down with a professional. Fear number 5, I cannot afford to buy my dream home. And I think that gets in the way of a lot of people in the beginning. And I fell victim to that. I wanted to get the perfect home. And the truth is that the best way to get closer to buying your dream home is to buy your first home. Your first home isn't supposed to be your dream home, but it will get you there. Fear number 6, I should wait until I'm certain about my domestic future. So you don't have to wait until you're married, partnered, or ready to have children to buy a home. Buy a home when you are financially able to buy a home. Fear number 7, buying a home seems way too complicated. No one would ever tell you that buying your home is easy, and it isn't, but that's why you align yourself with a professional that's going to guide you through the process. So that's why as agents, we're here to support you in that process. And the lender, what Marisol is here also to be a great partner in that process for you. So you're not alone, that's for sure. And fear number 8, I should pay off my student loan debt before buying a home. Again, student loan debt doesn't prevent you from buying a home. You sit down with a lender, a professional, and they'll go through different options. So the 10 easy steps to home ownership, what we're going to cover today is deciding to buy a home. Obviously, that's step 1. Finding your agent, securing your financing, which is a very critical piece, identifying the criteria, finding your home, making an offer, performing your due diligence, closing, and then after you close, it's not over, right? You move in and protect your investment, and then you enjoy service for a lifetime. So again, step 1, deciding to buy. Home ownership lays the foundation for a life of financial security and personal choice. My background is banking. Prior to getting into real estate on the sales side 10 years ago, I was a branch manager, and I got to meet a lot of people, and we all have. And the most financially secure people that we dealt with were all invested in real estate and had passive income from real estate. So again, buying that first home is so critical. And step 2 is finding your agent, making sure that you align yourself with someone that's going to have your back. As agents, we have a fiduciary responsibility to you. We're there to help guide you through the process, but it's really important that you connect with your agent, because you're going to be BFFs during the process. So you have to work with somebody you know, well, you trust, and you like. So as agents, we're here to educate you about the market. We're here to analyze your wants and needs. We're basically your matchmakers, right? Our goal is to find the perfect home for you, which is different for everyone. Steer you to homes that fit your criteria. So if you're talking to us and you're telling us you want a 2-bedroom house, we're not going to try to keep on pushing something onto you that you do not want. So it's really important that we sit down with you, we have a buyer consultation, and we learn about you. We coordinate the work of other professionals. So again, we work really closely with the lender during the escrow process. We help you find inspectors during the process and all the other professionals that you're going to need. They say that an escrow usually generates 54 checks, meaning there's 54 people involved in helping you purchase a home, which is kind of incredible. We're here to negotiate on your behalf. That's why you hire us. And what's great about hiring an agent as a buyer is that you do not pay to hire us. So the seller pays our fees. So you get to hire and fire if you don't like your agent, but you really, hopefully you don't. Hopefully you align yourself with a great agent, but you get to hire an agent and somebody else pays for it. I think that's pretty incredible. And we're here to solve any problems that may arise. We're here to absorb the stress, right? We don't want you guys to feel stressed throughout the process. And step 3 is super critical, is securing your pre-approved financing. And this is where Marisol, that has helped over 1,000 people get into their homes. That's amazing. Marisol is incredible. We have a great working relationship with Marisol and Financial Partners, been incredible partners. So we're so happy that you're here, Marisol. And she's going to cover what it looks like to secure financing.
Thank you. It's actually 1,006 people, just kind of want to keep it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, can you update it? So a little bit about me. I work for Financial Partners Credit Union, and I've been with the credit union a little over 8 years. My background is credit unions. I worked for Wells Fargo for a little bit of time, but that's a little bit about me. But we're here to talk about our financing and what the steps are to get pre-approved and the common misconceptions of pre-approvals. So we'll get started. So here's 7 steps to your financing, right? So number 1 is you want to crunch the numbers and you want to see what your budget is, right? One of the terms that I use very frequently is I don't want you to be house poor. So obviously I don't want you to exceed your budget and purchase a home that's not in your price range, although you might qualify for it. So we do 2 things when we do a buyer consultation. We'll talk about what the maximum is that you qualify for, and then we'll also talk a little bit about what it is that you want to keep within your budget and within your monthly payment expenses, so you continue to live the quality of life that you're used to. Obviously, becoming a homeowner is super important because you want to make sure that you're building equity and you're building a foundation, but you also want to make sure that you're building something within the means that you need to be. So we always tell you, this is the maximum that you qualify for, and this is the amount that you qualify for based on the budget that you gave me. And in addition to that, obviously choosing the right lender. Right now in the world of online banking and everything being so accessible, it's so important that you look at different pricing and different ranges. But you also want to make sure that you're working with someone that's educating you throughout the process, someone that's willing to sit down and structure a deal. I'll talk a little bit about a buyer that I had today. So I had a buyer that said, Marisol, this is my maximum monthly payment I want to be at. And their payment exceeded $200 to $300 more than where they wanted to be. So it literally took me a couple hours. I crunched the numbers and I actually got them where they wanted to be. So there's ways in a realistic output, if you're looking at a payment and you're like, Marisol, I don't want to exceed this number. How can we get there? If I realistically can get there, like obviously I don't want you to say I want to buy $1 million home with a $2,000 monthly payment, right? But we want to be really realistic as far as where you want to be as far as monthly payment. And we can get you there. It's just getting really creative and open-minded when it comes to financing. Number 3 is applying for the loan. I get the question all the time, so I don't want to ding my credit. Like, why am I going to pull my credit if I haven't found the right property just yet? So we'll get a little bit more into detail about that. And then decide your mortgage options. So I get a question all the time, so I'm pre-approved now for the home loan. And do I have to lock in an interest rate or select my program today? The answer is no. You actually don't have to select a program until you're officially in escrow and you have a binding contract of a specific property that you're going to purchase. And then number 5 is obviously submit an accepted purchase contract to lender. We'll get a little bit more into details about that. Get appraisal and title and obtain closing. So to establish your credit, I kind of touched each one a little bit, but I'll go more into detail. So we talked about establishing your budget, looking at realistically how much you're currently paying in housing expenses and seeing how much you can stretch your budget or exceed your budget in getting the right home for you. That might be that you make some adjustments along the way. And we'll talk about that. Say, hey, Marisol, I really wanted to get into a single family home, but I know you pre-approved me for a condo. This is how much the HOA is going to be. How much do I stretch my budget to get into a single family home? Just kind of an example of something we talk about. So that's a little bit about budget. Applying for the loan. So there's 2 different things when you're out in the market looking to pre-qualify for a mortgage, right? So you are talking to a lender and they ask you to submit an application and you're telling them all the information. And they'll generate a letter called a pre-qualification. So basically a pre-qualification is not binded. It hasn't been reviewed by anybody. It's basically all the information you input into a database. It calculated some numbers and it said, congratulations, you've qualified for $800,000 with 5% down per se. Usually when you're viewing homes, the seller isn't going to accept a pre-qualification because they know it hasn't been reviewed yet. It's really important to get a pre-approval because you'll have a solid number to work with. That way you're not going online and you're getting excited and then all of a sudden when it actually does get reviewed, it was a misunderstanding or something with the system and you actually didn't qualify for the amount that you originally got a pre-qualification for. So it's super important to get a pre-approval. And actually we're taking it a step further now. We're actually sending loans to underwriters to have a full stamp of approval. So that kind of helps when you're putting offers on a home. So basically a pre-approval will pull your credit, we'll look at your income, we'll ask for pay stubs, W-2s, or tax returns, depending on where you fall under that category. And then in addition to that, we will also ask for bank statements and probably do a verification of employment for your employer. Now, you'll never be notified of a verification of employment, but it's something that we do on the back end as well. And it makes you a really strong buyer because it shows a seller that you are very serious in the market and you're definitely looking at homes to buy. You're not really just window shopping. So that's important. Mortgage rates. This is a common question. Marisol, where are mortgage rates going to be tomorrow? I really wish I knew. If I did, I wouldn't be a lender. I can kind of gauge where they're going to be based on the bond market and the 10-year, right? So I can kind of strategize and see where I need you to be. But at the same time, I could be wrong. I've been wrong millions of times. So I try to say, if you like this interest rate today, lock it. If you're comfortable with the payment, let's lock it. Obviously, this happens once you're officially in escrow. Now, based on trends, right now we're kind of coming out of a time where it's like everybody is done with the interest rate shock, right? We know interest rates are higher than what they were. We know why. And we know eventually they're going to drop. So you kind of want to become a buyer right now where it's not a frenzy because eventually, and they can attest to this, inventory, there's a lot of things that correlate inflation that, play to the interest rates. What's really cool is we've become more creative as lenders. So we've found ways to, maximize that payment that you want to be end up in your budget and not maximize the payment for you. So we're taking more time with each and every single buyer to make sure that they're where they need to be.
And what we say is marry the house, date the rate.
Yes, marry the house, date the rate. refinance down the line. There's going to be a lot of really cool programs that come up with all of this too. Like you're going to be eligible for a quick refinance. There's going to be streamlines. There's going to be quick processes, especially if you stay with the lender that you love. So that's important to keep in mind, that the lender you end up with when you purchase a home is the lender you're most likely going to end up with when you refinance. So that's super important. Deciding amongst mortgage options. So there's so many options. You can buy a home with as little as 3% down. You can end up in a conventional. You can do an FHA. You can do a VA, like Brenda mentioned earlier, with 0% down, which is usually your, if you're a veteran, you have to have a commitment letter in order to do 0% down. But you don't technically decide that right away. You have time to season, you have time to review all your programs and all your options. I have clients say, should I go into an adjustable? Should I do a 30-year fixed? Should I do this? There's so many programs out there right now, and there's more coming. We want to make sure that, especially my credit union, I know we're doing a really good job in trying to get more first-time home buyers back in the market. So there's going to be ways to help you. So usually when you first do your pre-approval, we'll talk about a number, and that can change along the way. And that's why communication is super important. You'll hear from me from time to time and say, hey, just checking in. How's the shopping? Where are you? This is where rates are today. And then the other thing too is when you're deciding an option, we don't lock an interest rate until you're officially in escrow. Sometimes we can lock sooner if you know, Marisol, I'm shopping every single day. I'm going to find a home. I'm working with my agent. And I think in the next 30 days, I'll be in a property. Then we can talk about interest rate locking. However, if you're planning that, if it's going to take a little bit longer, I usually don't recommend a lock because it expires and then you end up paying more out of pocket. So we want to make sure we put you in the right situation for you. And obviously, based on your monthly payment budget, I'll make suggestions as well. Getting an appraisal and title, and you let me know when. Yeah, I'm good, right? Getting an appraisal and title. So basically, an appraisal is a third-party opinion of the value of the home that you're purchasing. This is something that has nothing to do with the credit union directly. We hire a third-party company, and then they go ahead and hire the appraiser that will go ahead and evaluate the home. We review the report, and then you get a copy of it. As a buyer, you are responsible for payment, which means you're the owner of the copy, and you decide if you'd like to share it. And then title obviously is a legal rights to the property. So we'll talk a little bit about how you want to title the property. California is a community property state. So obviously it's important if you have a spouse, we talk about who's going to be on title or how title is going to be situated. And this is something also that you work with the escrow company. And then monthly mortgage payment. So PITI is a common acronym you're going to hear throughout the process. So it's principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. As a first-time home buyer, you'll decide if you want your taxes and your insurance impounded. A lot of the times, if you're not putting 20% down payment, they are required. So it's a lender requirement to put your taxes and insurance in your monthly payment. And I usually make my recommendation if I see that you are, like if you have like annual bonuses or if you have commission that comes out every quarter, I'll look at your income and I'll suggest like, hey, don't add your taxes to your monthly payment. You can pay it with this. Or if you feel like it'd be stretching the budget and you just want to make sure you have a fixed payment each month, then I'll suggest to have taxes impounded, but it just depends. Keep in mind, when you do have taxes impounded in your monthly mortgage payment, there is a collection at close of escrow that happens. And a lot of the times, this is something that's not talked about frequently. So if you do have taxes impounded with your mortgage payment, at close of escrow, we'll collect a number of months depending on when property taxes are going to be due. And that's not really technically considered a closing cost. It's considered a cost at close fee or at close cost kind of thing. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then down payment, obviously based on the pre-approval that we talked about, you can do as little as 3% down. But if you're having a family that's going to gift you a down payment, what's really cool now is it can be 100% gifted. It used to be where you needed to come up with 3% down of your own money and 5% down of down payment or vice versa. Now it can be 100% gifted. Of course, your giftee would have to talk to their CPA or their tax advisor to see how it's taxed. A lot of the times, if someone is borrowing that money to give it to you, it's not taxed. So you just have to talk to them and have them talk to their tax person. Make sure, so cash, when you're purchasing a home, is not, unless you're paying it all in cash. I guess cash is king if you're paying the house full in cash. But If you have mattress money or savings money, please do not deposit it. We will shake you. And I'm just kidding. We have to source. So I get the question. It's like, Marisol, I had $10,000 that I was saving for a purchase of a home, but I have it at home in my safe. How can I get it through escrow? And I'm like, well, it has to be sourced. We have to be able to see where it came from, which means if you were taking out $500 a month from your checking account, I have to go back 2 years to source it, right? So it has to be sourceable down payment. It cannot be cash deposits. And if a family is gifting you the money, they have to write a gift letter saying that they are not expecting payment in return. So that's super important to talk about. And then obviously to maintain your pre-approval, I get the question, Marisol, how long is my pre-approval good for, right? Usually a pre-approval is good for 120 days, so 4 months. We've extended it 1 extra month. And I always say, but you're pre-approved pretty much for a while as long as nothing changes, right? So as long as you don't lose your job, you don't lose your down payment, and you don't buy something that was unexpected. Don't buy a boat, don't buy a car, don't get into debt at the time that you're pre-approved, because if something does change, then your pre-approval is not valid. Job changes, the common question I get is, Marisol, let's say I leave Boeing and I go to Raytheon, but I'm still an engineer. Can I use my employment? Yeah, as long as you have 2-year history of the same line of work. So you can't go from being an engineer to a doctor and all of a sudden we use your income. That's when line of work changes and we have to have 2-year history. That's it. Any questions? We'll wait till the end.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hi, everyone. Yvonne Inez. So I'm still waiting for that 100% gift money fairy too, like most of us are, but it's good to know that we have that option. So I get the fun part. And now you got your pre-approval. We understand steps. We're going to go through now actually starting the home buying process. What does that look like? So first, as Brenda mentioned in the beginning, we do like to set up a buyer consultation. So basically what that is sitting down with you and understanding what your criteria is going to be, what's important to you. Because the last thing that we want is there's a million homes that go on the market, right? We can see all of them. That's not really going to help you find your perfect home. And that's what we're here for, is to find a home that's going to fit you best and fit your needs best. So a lot of the questions when we sit down at buyer consultation is really finding out, what do I want my home to be close to? What would I like my neighborhood to be like? Because at the end of the day, our home is where we come to and where we, express ourselves, our lifestyle. How do we envision ourselves using that home? Oh, here we go. Go a little closer for the mic. And then also, what do you need that space for? What's important to you? Why it's important to you? Because there's a lot of times where if you're not clear on what it is that you want or why you want it, it makes it a little bit difficult for you to find the home. But this is where we guide you through the process and we ask a lot of questions and make sure that we understand what it is important to you. So it's fun. You get to kind of make your wish list, and we challenge you to find out like why those items on the wish list is important. And then after we do that and we sit down, we go ahead and set up the showing process. So this is where the real fun comes in, and we get to go house shopping together. Who doesn't like shopping? Because I like shopping. I've been doing this for 14 years. I feel like I've bought a million homes, but they never seem to want to let me in or give me my own key. I don't know, but I've bought lots of homes. I think we all have. So in any case, what the nice thing about working with us and working with professional realtor is, even though you guys have the accessible apps, right? There are the home search apps, and we have one actually that will tie to real life time. It's that in hearing what your needs are, we take the time to scrub the property. So we take the time to really review the market, what's out there, and then what's going to be a good fit for you based on what we hear. And so we line this up, we make the calls, we make the appointment, we make sure that these homes are properties that make your fit so that we're not wasting your time. So when you take the time to go out and you make the arrangements and we take you out, these are homes that are best going to be the opportunity that you guys can fall in love with. Sometimes it's the first home. We've had that. We always tell our buyers, hey, don't be surprised if the first home you see ends up being the home of your dreams. And sometimes it takes a little bit more, and that's okay. But each time we're definitely getting closer to what you guys are looking for. So here's the 4-step process. Determine what houses you want to see. 2, check out homes that match your criteria. That's where we set the appointment go. And then after a showing, number 3, we create a rating system. So basically, we discuss what homes you like the best and why, and then we narrow it down. And then 4, we sit down and then we get to decide if any of these homes, if you want to write an offer. So that's, the 4 steps to it. And this is the app that I was talking about that you can have, and we can go into that, between Brenda, myself, and Tammy. We can talk more about the apps, one-on-one. Okay. What your agent knows and what to see. So anyways, when we're deciding to write an offer, we are going to go through I know the slide's still up, but we're going to decide to go through, okay, what is it about the home that you love? Does it fit every criteria that you want? And then from there, when we write the offer, we're going to go through the contract and we're going to figure out, how are we going to get this home? When we're writing a contract, there's a lot of things to consider. The contract for California really protects the buyers because we have 3 contingencies in the contracts that will help you guys. And one will be, sorry, we're going through there. One will be the price. Next is going to be terms, and next is going to be contingencies. So on the contingencies for the contracts, buyers, you guys have 3 contingency. One is inspection investigation. The next is the appraisal, and the third is the loan. So on all those 3, you have the ability to do your due diligence during the escrow time and figure out if this home during the inspection, if there's anything that comes up that makes you, want to renegotiate repairs, or anything that you may find out with investigating the area that you may not like. And if for some reason it's just not a match, then you have the ability to cancel escrow. Second is the appraisal. So appraisal, of course, with Marisol touched on, is just the fact that in order for you guys to get the loan, the lender needs to know that the value that you offered to the seller is what market value is. And then the last one is loan. Of course, you have to be able to get the loan in order to purchase the house. And then performing due diligence. So one of the biggest questions that we get for buyers is, of course, you're like, hey, if I make an offer to the home and I move in and we find out there's something really wrong with the house, what happens? What do we do? We've been doing this a long time. We've seen it all. Of course, new things come up all the time, and we'll help you get through it. And of course, no house is perfect, right? We all know that. But one of the things to rest assured is that we do work with professionals, general home inspectors. Sometimes we get roofers, sometimes we get plumbers, and we're going to really help you do your due diligence to make sure that, we find out everything that we can with the home. And if for some reason, it needs a new roof or the air conditioner doesn't work, this is your time to come back and renegotiate with the seller, either in credits or actual repairs, and we'll help you get through that. And then step 8 is close.
Thank you. I'm back. Okay, so we get to the point where hopefully you've already gone through all the negotiations and the stressful part is over, and now you're getting ready to close. It's super important that throughout the process, you guys don't get crazy and go to Vegas and order bottle service. We actually had that happen where somebody spent $5,000 on their American Express credit card, and the lender came back and said, we don't know that we can close this deal anymore. So just making sure that every step of the way, like you're going to go to shopping and they're going to, they entice you to open a new credit card. Don't do anything. You're in the middle of purchasing a home. Don't go buy a new car. Don't go adopt a puppy, because you don't know where you're going to end up. We've had cases where sometimes buyers don't want to buy a house because the living room doesn't fit their couch that they just purchased. Don't go shopping for furniture, guys, until you find your home. One of the things that I want to talk about is also being realistic. I mean, we want you to get into a home, but it's not going to be your dream home. And we kind of laugh and we say that, do you want to close that? that sometimes we, buyers, and we all have champagne taste on a beer budget, right? And I think sometimes you just have to be realistic that you're going to walk into a place and you're not going to fall in love with it immediately, but just see the potential in it, right? Going back to when we sat down with you, what was important to you, we're going to remind you, you wanted a 3-bed, 2-bath. It's probably really dark. You're probably going to have to spend some money on lighting, but it has those things that you really want. So we're your reality check. And that's where we really come in and we're super honest with you, right? You're going to say, well, what do you think? It's like, well, when you ask that, you're going to get the truth from us. We don't lie to you, but we're here to our goal is to get you to become homeowners. So we want to help you. I mean, at the end of the day, you're the one that's going to have to make that payment. So as long as you can sleep at night, then we're good. But we're there to say, there's compromises, just like everything else in life. You're going to get it all, but maybe not all at the same time, unless you have this amazing abundance of money that you have. Otherwise, if you're normal working people like all of us, then you're going to have to make some concessions. Again, during the process, we're going to be BFFs, right? You're going to talk to your agent daily, and it's super important. Your lender as well. I mean, even if you're going to, you're shopping and you're going to make a purchase that's over $500, you should probably text Marisol and say, hey, is this okay? If your debt to income ratio is super tight, that may not be okay. So just staying super close to us and communicating with us is really important. And before we close escrow, and we've lifted all contingencies, we do a final walkthrough of the property, right? We want to make sure that that property is in the same condition that it was when you opened escrow, right? We don't want to walk in there and all of a sudden the toilets are pulled out, people got crazy, right? So that's super important. Again, you have that protection. If we walk in there and it's not in the same condition, then we don't have to close, right? I mean, at that point, we make sure to, do our due diligence and follow protocol. And then hopefully you're excited, you move in and you get your keys, and now you move in and now you're a homeowner, right? So now the real work begins. You have to make payments and you have to move in and really protect your investment. And what that means is maintaining, right? Doing your maintenance on the property. And you may not know, like, what does that mean? And that's why you guys are going to be part of our book club, and everybody gets a book on, and a great reference for you, your first home. Those of you that are here are going to walk away with a copy of your own book. And those of you that are online, just reach out to us and we're happy to get a book out to you. Yeah, to mail it out to you. But just making sure that you're having termite companies come out once a year. The whole point is this is the biggest investment that you're ever going to make. It's going to be your biggest asset. So making sure you're taking care of it, you're doing that routine maintenance. You're watching for signs of leaks, of damages, of wear. Get in front of problems, right? People will say, well, there was a leak, but I didn't worry much about it. And you wait and you kick the can down the road, and now you have to replace it with the new roof. So the good news is, you guys, once we really are kind of family, we consider once we close escrow, we're in communication with you guys all the time. We like to pop in and visit. We like to check in with you, and we want to be your resource. So if there's anything that's happening, I mean, we get calls all the time. People will need recommendations for a new roofer, an electrician. So we want to be that resource for you. Post-close, you obviously want to keep receipts for all of your repairs. And consider having a home warranty. Part of escrow, you're going to have a home warranty that we're going to negotiate on your behalf from the seller to pay. After that, consider that. I mean, it usually runs about $600 a year, but it can save you thousands. I personally had my whole AC unit replaced. That would have been $15,000, and I paid about $1,500 with my home warranty. Yeah. And oh yes, it's very important that you keep in mind, and we didn't even touch on this today, but it's different than home insurance. Home warranty is there in the event that something breaks. Home insurance is fire insurance, right? In case, and I mean, there's other things as well, but really consider it kind of your fire insurance. It's two different things. And keeping a file of receipts, that's really important. And people don't worry about that, but when you turn around, if you're going to decide to sell that property, your CPA is going to say, great, now we have to pay taxes on those gains unless you have receipts to show of all of your improvements. So either keep them electronically, keep a list of everything. I would create an Excel spreadsheet, but staying really organized. We actually give you a binder at closing, so we hope that you use that binder to keep your receipts. And then you enjoy service for a lifetime, like I talked about. You don't get rid of us, right? I mean, and that's really, we really pride ourselves in that, Vivon being in the business for 14 years, me 10 years. It's like we've gotten to now I'm helping like some of my clients' kids, which is like really sad. We're getting old. But it's really true, and we really pride ourselves in that, and we work really hard to negotiate on your behalf and to make sure that you're happy. But at the end of the day, you guys are the ones that are in control, right? You're the ones making the payment. So we always say this: we don't sell houses, right? We match make. We try to find the perfect home for you. But at the end of the day, you need to be happy. So getting started. Now we're ready for questions. Questions, anybody? Okay, if you can, those of you on Zoom, if you can put it in the chat, if you have any questions, those of you live, yes, Eric. Okay.
Is that something that you could like add on to your mortgage plan and all that kind of stuff?
So Eric's question is home warranty. Can you add that to your mortgage? And actually, you don't add that to your mortgage. That's a whole separate payment. But home insurance, that is part of that PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Yes, but the home warranty is a completely separate thing. That's a really great question. Brandon. I'm gonna. Yes.
When you apply for a loan, what documents should you have prepared for your loan officer?
Another great question.
Great question. So depending on how your income is structured, if you're a W-2 employee, we'll need the last 2 years W-2s, 30 days pay stubs, 2 months bank statements, and a few disclosures to be signed, and obviously a credit check. If you are self-employed, we'll need the last 2 years tax returns, and that's with all schedules. So depending if you're a sole proprietor, we'll need just your Schedule C, and so on and so forth. We'll get in detail if you're self-employed. But if you're just W-2, 2 years W-2, 30 days pay stubs, 2 months bank statements. And your blood type. No, I'm just kidding.
Anyone else? Oh, Katie.
Who decides what is covered under the home warranty?
The home warranty company. And it's like, just consider that home warranty is like any other insurance. They're going to avoid paying as much as they can. But I'll give you an example. We had a situation where we closed escrow on a property, and the weekend that they moved in, there was plumbing issues, and they came out and they took care of it. There was an $80 copay. There is a copay, but like, you can't move in and say, oh, I need a new roof, right? So come and replace it. Anything that is identified during the home inspection process is not going to be covered, because you already knew about it. And that was the other thing. I want to make sure that you understand that when you purchase a property in California, it's purchased as is, meaning you're given all this time to do your investigations like Vivon covered. But once you close escrow, you can't be like, oh, lemon law, like I don't want it anymore. No, because that's the whole point. You're given all this time. The buyer's responsible to pay for the inspections, but you guys can have any and all inspections. We usually, depends, right, whether it's a home or a condo, but if it's a home, we recommend a sewer scope, meaning you're actually running a camera through the sewer system, the plumbing system, to see what it looks like. You can't get in there, right, and look at it. So you spend a couple $100s to get that. You might want to have a roofer come out and spend a few $100s to have them really inspect the roof. An electrician. I mean, this is a major investment. So sometimes people are like, I don't want to spend the money. It's like, well, would you rather spend $300 now or $20,000 later, right? You should know exactly what you're getting. So that inspection period is super important. Okay, Brendan, can you expand a little more on the certified funds for closing? What if your funds will be coming from a few different accounts? Marisol.
That's a great question. So as long as I verified where your money's coming from, so if you've provided your 2 months bank statements of all the accounts and you didn't hide an account from me, then it's totally fine. You can start consolidating. I'll tell you when you can consolidate your funds. That way you only have to send out a wire transfer one time. When you open escrow, you'll typically have to send 3% as an earnest money deposit, and then that gets put into your closing cost total. And then at the very end, you send the rest of the funds that are needed to close. So typically what happens if you're taking money out of a brokerage account or out of your IRA or your 401k, things like that, that you're trying to consolidate, we'll have a conversation about, hey, this is time where you want to consolidate into your checking account and send the money over to escrow. What's really cool, if you open an account with my credit union and you put your money there, we'll transfer the money for you and you'll avoid a wire transfer fee. So that's pretty cool. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in depth once we sit down for a consultation, depending on where your money's coming from. Really important is that you share all your bank statements. So if your money's coming from like your 401k and you didn't provide your statement, I'll need that for sure, because the underwriter will want to review where the money's coming from. And then that kind of touches a little bit on 401k withdrawals. So every plan has their own summary plan descriptions and rules. So you want to make sure you talk to HR so they can provide you that. So if you know, if you want to use your 401k as down payment. A lot of people don't realize you actually can, and it's pretty cool. Mhm.
Sorry. So what Marisol touched on and actually just brought up is, a question to be brought up is, what do we need right away when we're buying a home? Like what funds besides the down payment? So a good thing to know is that besides your down payment, where it'd be 3%, anywhere to 20%, buyers, you guys do have closing costs that you have to have available. Closing costs are fees that are, lender fees, escrow, and title. Sellers have their closing costs, buyers have their own closing costs. That comes at the end and gets added in with your down payment. When you're making an offer, in order for you to open escrow, and of course for the seller to be willing to take their asset off the market, right? We suggest a 3% good faith deposit. So that funds, when you do close escrow, that 3% goes towards, your down payment and gets deducted as a credit to you. However, during your due diligence, during the investigation, appraisal, or loan contingencies, if you are unable to close based on those contingencies, you get your 3% back. Another thing is to prepare, like Brenda said, for the fees of inspections. So you should also set aside some funds and be expecting to pay out, service fees for when you order an appraisal, and then any inspections that you have, and each of them running anywhere from $200 or $400. Again, homes, you'll get more inspections, because it's a larger asset that you have to spend more on roof and sewer. Condos and townhomes are a little bit different, but these are fees that are in addition to your down payment that we would be discussing with you to have. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Oh, Tammy. What is the rough? Okay, the question that Tammy brought up, sorry, because but this is a question we get all the time, and she knows, is what is the rough estimate for closing costs? They're anywhere between 2 and 3% of your purchase price, give or take. And also because of how you're structuring your loan, that can change when you close, because your property taxes are also paid in there. That's going to fluctuate. So when you do open escrow, you will get a disclosure to show what you can expect on your closing costs.
Thank you. That was a great question.
Yeah, that was a good question. Oh, go ahead.
And it also depends on your lender. Closing costs are very dependent on your lender fees. So it's really important that when you're shopping for a lender, you're not only looking at the interest rate, but you're also looking at their fees. Because a lot of the times, especially interest rates that are advertised, they're usually advertised. So there's a plethora of interest rates out there, right? So if you buy a condo, interest rates are slightly higher. If you buy a single family home with 3%, it might be a little bit higher than a 5% down payment. So typically when they're advertising interest rates, they're going to advertise the lowest possible that they have for that day, which means you have to put 40% down. Your credit score has to be at 740. You're buying a single family home. That's typically the criteria that they will advertise. So, and then points are a big part of closing costs. Is your lender charging points for that interest rate, and is the other lender not? So keep in mind that closing costs are highly driven by the lender that you're using. And then there's also third-party fees, appraisal, title, escrow, how much they're going to charge. So keep in mind that you want to see what the lender's going to charge. And credit unions are known for lower fees for sure. And rates.
Yeah.
And rates.
That's good.
Mhm.
And the closing costs, guys, aren't just, don't think those are fees. Like, oh my gosh, I'm getting I'm getting charged to death. No, a lot of that they're called recurring and non-recurring, right? The non-recurring is your one-time escrow, appraisal fees.
Yeah.
But then they, sometimes the lender has to collect your taxes in advance. So you're paying 6 months of taxes. That's why you want to have that money. So that 2 and 3% is not really, don't think of that as fees, right? And, to Marisol's point, we've worked with a lot of lenders. I know tons of lenders from my background. We all do. And the credit union's the absolute cheapest to work with. Like, they get the best service for the lowest price because they don't add any junk fees because they're so member centric. So another thing I wanted to talk about is I know family members, when they find out you want to buy a home, they're so excited for you and they're ready to give you advice. And sometimes their advice is like from 1985, right? So it's great. Yes. My mom's so cute. Like you would think she's a real estate mogul and she never bought a house in her life, right? Like I love my mom, but she's never even been through the process. And she just like hears all this stuff. It's all hearsay. So if you have those questions, like we're here to answer those questions. Use us as your resource and ask any question that you have. The market's different, right? I mean, it's different today than it was 6 months ago, even 4 months ago, right? The market's a little different. So make sure that you're working with a professional that has their pulse, like their eye on the market, right? So we know exactly what's happening. And really, this is a daily thing for us. It's not like, you want to make sure, and you don't want to work with, necessarily a hobbyist. You want someone who's really in the business, and that's super critical. Also being aware of, everyone's saying, well, the interest rates went up, prices are going to drop. Well, not really. I mean, we're having a hard time getting, we're being beat out with buyers in yes, we have a few buyers here with us now, but we have a few buyers that have to try 2, 3, 4 times to actually get their offer accepted. So just know that the market, it's not like, oh, they're giving houses away. That's not really the way it works. It's all supply and demand. It's basically Econ 101, right? If there's more buyers than there are sellers, then the market's going to continue to be strong and there might be competition. So don't take it for granted, right? Just make sure that you're super active. We work as fast or as slow as you want to work. If you're like, hey, I'm not ready to buy for a year, no problem, no stress from us, but we'll know that you're going to be ready in a year. If you're like, we want to get out, let's run, we're going to run right next to you. So that's what we're here for. Any other questions? Yes. Eric.
Kind of going back on your family advice, kind of like my story is my parents have expressed about helping, gifting, and then also co-signing. In your professional opinion, what advantages and disadvantages do you
Okay.
have?
That's a great question. We love gifts, right? If they're willing to gift you money, then jump on it and get it as fast as you can, right? But I mean, co-signing, I personally would avoid that unless you need it. So that's why you sit down with Marisol, right? You sit down with the lender. And if she says, hey, listen, based on your income alone, you're going to need a little bit of help, then awesome. Now you have that resource available, right? And they're ready to jump in. But it's that way, if you co-sign, now you're kind of dependent on them. And now there's another party making decisions. So if you really want to be truly independent, take the gift and run.
And also with co-signing, because I've seen this very frequently, especially recently, especially when we had historical low interest rates that are most likely not going to happen again. And let's say that person wants to get out of that loan and they're like, hey, you need to refinance to remove me. And now you're going to have to refinance at a higher interest rate. Maybe now might not be the case because you might actually buy at a slightly higher interest rate, be able to refinance at a lower one later. But just keep that in mind that once they're ready to do something or purchase, it's going to affect them. You're at their mercy. And then most of the time, people that I've talked to, they're like, oh, do I need a cosigner? And a lot of the times you don't, and you just haven't had that consultation yet to know if you do or not.
That's a really great question.
Yeah, great question. I love it.
Even if they're out of state. Yeah.
If you really need a cosigner, they can be a non-occupant cosigner. So you have that eligibility.
My parents specifically my mother's buy her phone. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but it's not as easy because it's hard. You just yeah, I'll let you
But not really. She could write a letter and just say, I'm going to gift you $100,000. And the lender, as long as they can source the money, right? It's not coming from a mattress. As long as it's in a bank account, then Marisol's able to use that.
Yeah. As long as she signs a gift letter, she can give you all of your down payment and closing costs.
Yeah. Yes.
Question is, what's an option for repair a credit? What's an option? Because you said that it's an option to have a bad credit to buy a house.
Oh, to repair your credit. Yes.
So You want something really cool that the credit union offers is we do a credit builder. So you basically sit down, we do a hard inquiry on your credit report, and we kind of go through it to help you repair your credit. So we'll kind of give you like the logistics, like obviously you want to make sure you have only 30% utilization on your credit, like you're not maxing out your credit cards, you have at least 3 credit cards. If you are maxed out, look to increase your credit, like your credit limits, things like that. So we actually have that as an offer completely free. You can walk into one of our branches, sit down, and we'll do a credit builder. And we actually give you a time frame. We say, okay, in 6 months, if you do the things that we're recommending, you'll see this kind of jump. So we have a rate genius that gives us like a simulation. If you do these things in the next 6 months, your credit score will go up by 10 points. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. So it's something that we offer, or you can talk to someone that knows credit. The thing is, it's an algorithm, right? Your credit score, and it's kind of weird, and it's really important to know how it works. So that's why sitting down and talking about it, like, do you have a lot of credit cards and not enough installment loans, things like that. We really know the details on how to help you repair your credit if need be.
And that's a good question. We've actually worked with clients that in the beginning their credit was not, where it needed to be. And then they did, repair their credit and work on repairing it. And as soon as even it's close to 6 months, they were ready to buy, 6 months to a year, either way. But they went from going, oh my gosh, like we're never gonna be able to buy a house. And we were saying, no, you can actually work on the credit. And some of them were able to get there a lot sooner.
Yeah.
And then they were able to buy a home. Yeah.
And the minimum credit score requirement to buy a home is 620. So a lot of people don't realize that 620 is your minimum credit score requirement. Yeah, of course, you're not going to get the very best interest rates, because the lower the credit, the higher the rate, right? So you have to keep that in mind. But if it helps you get in a house, it actually might help repair your credit too in the future. So 620, obviously there's going to be details of what's in the credit. Like if you had a recent foreclosure, bankruptcy, things like that, we get more into detail on how long the waiting period is in that sense.
We have a great story of a client that we met and had a short sale, and almost 3 years to the day, we helped her get into a property. And then I think she made like $200,000 during COVID, refinanced with Marisol, and is like sitting pretty. And she had just had a short sale. So again, don't be discouraged. No matter what that history is, there is a path to home ownership for everyone in this room, and everyone, really, everyone. Yes. A short sale, we don't see short sales that much anymore. But a short sale is when the owner of a property owes more than the property is worth. And you don't see those very often now, because there's been kind of a big appreciation with the market, right? So, but a lot of people, that's a great question. Wonder what short sales are. Natalie.
So because student loans don't affect your ability to buy a home, does that mean that your student loan is not included in your debt to income ratio?
Love it. Yes. It actually is included in your debt to income ratio. Right now, student loans are deferred, right? They're still deferred, I think, until June. I could be wrong. I'll double check on the date. But if they're currently deferred and on your credit report, it shows that you don't have an obligation or a monthly payment, we will revert back to a 1% balance. In order to we have to hit you for a 1% balance, which means if you owe an $18,000 student loan, we'll do $180 monthly payment. If you have a letter from your student loan servicing agency that says you are currently in a program that doesn't require you to repay your student loans, that's when we will remove the payment as a total. So it depends on the person and what they're doing with their student loans. If you've applied for, let's say you had a $10,000 student loan and you're going to get it forgiven, and if you have the application process already going, then you just show that to us and we'll remove it from your credit report. In the net, basically any debts, let's say you have an auto loan and it's going to be paid off in the next 6 months, that gets removed from your credit report as well. So things like that. But student loans, we use 1% of the balance if there isn't currently a payment. We have a program where we can use as little as 0.5% as a payment. So it can be a little bit lower. So it just depends on what program we end up using. But great question.
Oh, love it. No, like it. These are great questions, guys. Everyone's learning.
Is it possible to put your mortgage monthly payments on a credit card to take advantage of like points or anything like that? Probably not.
Oh. Yeah. Unfortunately, there is no mortgage company that is allowing that yet. I hope that one day you can. I don't know why. That's the only thing that I've never been able to pay with my credit card, which I want to do. No, you cannot pay your mortgage, so you can get credit card points, unfortunately. That would be awesome, but that's a great question.
Yes.
I know you guys touched bases on like you need like at least 20% down, but no, my question is how do you qualify for like even 3% down where you got state incentives? What is it that?
No, well, I'll let Marisol talk about this.
That's a great question. So you don't need 20%. You don't need 20% down to purchase a home. If you don't put 20% down, you obviously will have private mortgage insurance, which is PMI. That's usually the acronym you'll hear. You can buy a home with as little as 3% down on a conventional loan, 3.5% down with FHA. We'll sit down and discuss which one makes more sense for you. Usually I will always go conventional if I can, but for whatever reason you fall under the FHA category, we'll go that route. There is city grants that are giving down payment assistance. They're income driven. So basically you have to make X amount of dollars. There has to be certain people in the household in order for you to qualify for a down payment assistance grant. It's just going to be dependent on the city that you're looking to purchase. But most importantly, in order to buy a home with 3% down is you have to be a first time home buyer, which means you cannot have been a homeowner in the last 3 years. Yeah, but you can buy it with as little as 3% down for sure. I always recommend 5% though, if we can stretch it a little bit, because your PMI is going to be cut by half if you do 5% down versus 3%.
Yeah. Natalie.
At what point is PMI dropped?
Great question. So PMI, if you do a conventional loan, you can remove PMI as soon as 2 years from the start of ownership of home. So you would call us and say, hey, my home has appreciated. It's 2 years. I want to remove PMI. So that's 2 years. If you go the FHA route, you can never remove PMI. The only way to remove PMI is to refinance into a conventional loan. So that's typically why I mostly will always steer you to conventional. There's other fees associated with the FHA. There's advantages. You can have a higher debt to income ratio on FHA, a lower credit score, 580 is FHA requirement, but it's going to come at a cost. There's MIP pre-funding, which means that you also pay for your PMI up front. I believe it's 1.25%. And then you also pay for it monthly. So I always try to save you money any way that I can. So if I can put you into a conventional, I will. But to answer your question, sorry, 2 years. My lengthy answer.
Yeah, a lot of people, I mean, that bought in like the beginning of 2020 have already dropped their PMI.
Oh,
It's based on their appreciation, right? You know, you gain equity one of two ways, right? The market just naturally appreciates, and every month that you make a payment, you pay down your principal a little bit. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes. So kind of two parts to my question. So from the point of you purchasing your home, when's the first time you can refinance?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
How soon can you refinance?
So with the credit union, you can refinance the very next day if you wanted to. There's obviously refinance fees associated, title, escrow, and appraisal. If you wanted to pull cash out from your home, it's a 6-month waiting period. But if you want to combine like a line of credit that wasn't pulled at the same time from when you purchased a home, it's a 12-month waiting period. But if you just want to do a straight refinance without any cash out, there's no waiting period for that.
And what are the
That's a great question. You can refinance as often as you need to, but you do have to wait that 12 months for the cash out combining. But yeah, if let's say you bought a home today and next month interest rates were a quarter lower and you want to refinance, we'll obviously make recommendations and say, hey, I think you should wait a little bit longer, because obviously there is cost to refinancing a home, because we still have to pay escrow, we still have to pay title, we might need an appraisal. An appraisal is good for 12 months. So typically we can use the appraisal that was used at the initial purchase if you end up refinancing right away, but there isn't any waiting period. You can refinance every 2 months if you wanted to spend the money to do that. Yeah, great question. Yeah.
Okay.
Marisol, can you speak a little bit more to VA loans?
Yeah. Okay, so VA loans are awesome. So if you're a veteran and you have a VA eligibility, you can buy a home with 100% financing, which means you have to come up with 0 down payment. and there's no PMI. So basically you will not have PMI and you can finance the entire balance. You do have to have a VA eligibility, which from what I've heard from veterans, they know exactly what it is. They kind of stamp it on you and let you know this is what you need to get all your VA benefits. So it's just a piece of paper that says you've been certified and you have an eligibility amount on a VA loan. The interest rates are typically a little bit better on VA loans because obviously it's a reward for veterans, and you can finance the entire amount. There is closing cost on VA loans, and there is like a requirement when we're doing a pre-qualification, which means like your debt to income ratios have to be at 43%. Things like electricity and utility bills they do go against your debt to income ratio. They want to make sure you well qualify and they put you in a home that you're going to fully afford, which is why utility bills are also included. Things that are a little bit different in conventional loans, we use your gross income. We don't use childcare expenses or utilities against you. On VA loans, they do.
Go off of that. So if I had a family member who is in active duty, and say I wanted to utilize that kind of that program, is there a way to do that? Would they have to be on the title? Would they co-sign? Like, how does that?
That's a great question. The VA eligibility, the VA person, the veteran has to be owner and on the loan. Mhm. Yeah.
There's also,
We have a question on the chat. It is, if you are married, but one person has more debt than the other, California, can only one person apply to purchase the home, or because you are married, their debt will be counted also? Oh, this is great. Is mortgage based on the entirety of the loan and VA loans? Okay, let's start with the top one.
Yeah. So if you are married and we are just using husband on the loan or wife or vice versa, spouse on the loan, we do not have to include the other person's debts because we're only using one credit report, right? You could still be on title because California is a community property state. So spouses have to be on title, or you have to sign off rights on title. So you could still be on title, but only one person be on the loan as long as you qualify and the debt ratios meet. So that's kind of to answer the question on that. Credit scores, this actually brings up a great point. I always get the question, my husband has a higher credit score than I do, or vice versa. Whose credit score will you use? So for a mortgage, we use a tri-merge credit report. So we pull all three credit bureaus and we use the lowest of the two. So if one of you guys has a really high FICO and the other one has a lower FICO, just always know that the lower FICO is the one that's going to be taken into consideration. Yeah, unfortunately.
And then the next question is mortgage based on the entirety of the loan? Yes, because it's
Yes.
zero down.
It says zero down. So 100% financing. So if you buy a house for 800,000, we're financing 800,000.
Big payment.
That's
Yeah.
That would be a big payment. Keep that in mind. All right. Yes, Katie. Yeah, and then we're going to wrap it up just to be respectful of everyone's time.
So I feel like it's a question for you. What if you had a spouse that were traveling a lot, but they were using their own credit card for it, and you're like, don't make a huge purchase while you're trying to buy a house, but they're obviously traveling a lot and they're using their credit card for it, but the work also reimburse them later. Does that look bad on purchasing the house, or is that money coming back into the credit card looking okay?
That's a great, yeah.
So so a lot of the times on the credit report for people that have American Express or credit cards that are paid within 30 days, if you pay your credit card in full each month and you show proof that you have the funds, it won't count against you. Now, if you're using a credit card that's most likely not going to be paid in full, just let me know and we'll add it to your debt to income ratio. I say, hey, Marisol, I had to put 15,000 on my credit. How does it look? It's going to be paid off? I would say try to get that employee reimbursement as soon as possible before we close escrow so we can omit it from the credit report. If we can't, then we'll have to find a way to see what we need to pay off or finagle to get the pre-qualification again, if it affects it. For the most part, as long as you run something by me, and if it's something like a credit card, it'll work. As long as you're not buying a new car or, you don't do anything. And before you close escrow, so literally 3 days before you close, we do a pre-close credit check, which is a soft credit inquiry to make sure your credit card balances didn't go up, you didn't buy a new car. And we also do a verification of employment to make sure you're still employed. So don't make any changes until you actually have your keys in hand, because that's typically what happens. People think, oh, I signed my loan documents, I'm all done. I can go buy a car tomorrow. No. Furniture. That one's the most common. Like, I'm going to go buy my furniture. No, even if you already signed loan documents, we do prior to funding checks to make sure that nothing has changed. So keep that in mind. And that we'll have that conversation. I'll tell you a million times until I turn blue. And if it happens, it happens.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Yeah.
And we do too. We remind you throughout the process. Well, we want to thank everyone here tonight, and we're going to stick around. So, please stick around, have dinner with us. We're here to answer questions. And those of you on Zoom, thank you. Sorry we went over, but we are going to send a copy of the recording and also the slideshow presentation to everybody. So thank you again. Thank you on behalf of myself, Vivon, Tammy, Natalie, and of course, Marisol Cortez. Thank you again for awesome dinner, and have a good night, everyone. Good night.